have this piece of cedar here that I cut in half so that way the bark side is facing each other. I want to do like a river table. Well, I attempted this weekend and really messed up. I used silicone, but the silicone was some El Cheapo silicone, so therefore my resin leaked out. Boy, was that a disaster. It was bugs. Kind of a good thing though, because this resin I had used was not transparent. So I thought, well, what was the point of putting the barks next to each other if you can't see them? So I have my ink colors here I got with a kit that I purchased, colorants that I got when I purchased my UV resin off of wish.com. They came with colors. So I want to use like fire looking colors, I guess, so reds, orange, and yellows. I might play with mixing some more of like a sunset desert, I guess, desert sunset kind of, to go along with this red cedar. And it's going to be a platter. I screwed boards to the end tiers to keep them equal distance apart, and also so that way I can keep them nice and flat too. And they're in the corners that will be cut off. Those holes that I created when I drilled those screws in there, they'll be cut off whenever I put it on the bandsaw. Now that I have a circle jig and a bandsaw, whoop whoop. I'm so excited about that. I don't know when that'll wear off. Maybe after I use it a ton of times. I don't know, but I'm excited. When you don't have something that really, really helps you out in the shop and you finally get it, it is just amazing. Anyway, so I screwed that board on both sides, some scrap ply. What I'm going to try to do now is just use my hot glue gun to hot glue this. This is like a cutting board plastic that you get at the Dollar Tree. There was 2 in a pack for $1 to the back, and then I'm going to duct tape it on top of that just for extra measure. But I'm hoping that will work this time. I'm hoping I'm not cleaning up resin. Unfortunately, the colors and how I'm doing this, I'm having to pour them all at once, so it takes time to see if it's going to leak out. And that's what happened before. I had it all the way full. But I didn't waste the resin. I was able to pour it out into another mold and use it for my shaving brushes. So that was a good thing. The resin wasn't wasted. It was just a mess, hot mess. Resin got everywhere. But I kind of knew it was going to be a bad idea, and I went for it anyway, because that's how I learned, folks, the hard way. But I'm going to get my hot glue gun is warming up. Get it nice and hot so I can put a ton of glue under this mat. I'm going to flip this thing on its back. Get it all glued up. Take some time. I'm going to take some time getting that on here properly and just glue every inch. I'll probably use up all my glue sticks on this, but I don't care. I don't want it leaking out again. And then use some duct tape to kind of just be an extra set of precautionary. We'll see how it works. If that doesn't do it, I don't know what will. Oh, these colors smell like fish. Careful what you get from China. Oof, nasty. see if it'll stay purple. For some reason, purple and resin do not like each other. Alright, so I guess the closest to purple, I'm getting wine.
One of these days I'll actually get a proper camera that records when I push the record button. I apologize, it did not record me mounting it on my faceplate and turning to this point. So at this point I'm coming up, this is the back, side of the plate, and I'm kind of having a little bit of a, I don't know, I guess a creative stump. I'm trying to figure out how to shape this. I mean, it's such a small, narrow little space that I guess you can just, get creative and do all kinds of shapes and stuff. And I just was really having a difficult time shaping it. I'm sure we all get in those creative lumps and are really unsure of how, we want it to look. I mean, I've had this platter in mind for a while, and I just never just really thought through as far as how it would shape. And I even went online and looked at, wood turn platters and stuff, and just, eyeballed the shapes, and nothing really stuck to me. Nothing really was, I don't know. It's hard to explain. So when you see some of my pieces and think, oh, those are so great. I mean, don't feel left out. I have a hard time creating and seeing shapes. It's not easy all the time. Sometimes things just flow and it happens, and sometimes, I struggle. So this piece I did struggle on the shape, and I kind of just got it there, and I was like, well, that, I'm gonna just cut away all the wood and resin if I don't quit trying shapes. So I just felt that I needed to just be satisfied with where it was at and move on. So now I'm making the mortise in the very bottom in the platter, and I'm gonna flip it, I'm gonna sand it down really good, and then use the Axe abrasive paste and then the restoring polish. And that part, I don't think it filmed as well. The camera just decides to shut off whenever it pleases, so I have to babysit it. I sand all the way to, I think, 600. The cedar and the resin are, the cedar, if you've ever turned cedar, is quite a pain in the butt because it's soft. And so as far as sanding the resin and the cedar together to get the same smoothness wasn't that tricky. It's just how the finish on the cedar, how it absorbs finish and stuff. So there I put lacquer and lacquer thinner as a sanding sealer, and I'm just taking it back with my green little scrubby, and then I'm putting the Axe abrasive paste on, and then I'll put the restoring polish on as well, and then OB Shine Juice. And I don't think it showed some of that, the video, so I apologize about that. And then I just flip it around and hollow out the inside and do the same thing. I have to admit though, when I was finished with this platter and pulled it off that night, I woke up next morning to take pictures of it because it was too dark by the time I got done to photograph it, and I really didn't like the finish. I didn't like how the OB Shine Juice just didn't take in some areas than others. So some areas were like nice and shiny, others were just like matte. It looked like the finish just got absorbed, and I have issues finishing cedar. I kind of figured that this would be no different. So I brought it back in the shop the next morning and just took it completely down again, 80 grit, and worked all the way back up, and decided to just go ahead and give it more of a like satin finish, because it was just better than trying to get all of it to be real shiny. So the images at the very end of the video are of the final. So if you see that they're not as shiny, that's because I went back and sanded it all down and refinished it the next day. There's just some things, you know, you just know that you can do better, or just bother you. You got that perfectionist, or there's things that you just, you know. So I have to admit that this video isn't of the final, but the pictures at the end are. I just got finicky with it and decided that it wasn't the best it could be. So here I have a little hole in the bark area. Now this wasn't put in my pressure pot, so the resin was just sitting out, and air bubbles obviously can happen, but what was wonderful is I only had this little air gap that was in between the bark and the wood, assuming it was probably underneath, you know, where it was sitting face down when I poured the resin. And I have 2 little air bubbles in the piece, and that's it. I was very, very surprised that I didn't have any more air bubbles than what I did. So I took and put the 5-minute epoxy and taped a little, like, you'll see I taped a little, like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a little whatever to hold the epoxy in, so I didn't have to pull it off the lathe, because I already have kind of a wobble in this chuck, and you can kind of see it in the piece. And plus it's got, you know, it's imbalanced because of the weight of the wood and the weight of the resin. So I made a little pocket, and I just did clear epoxy because I didn't want to add any other color. It's hard to see what color was really there anyway. And then just took my negative rake scraper and went over that. Negative rake scraper worked really well on the resin, but the cedar didn't care for it too much. So there's certain woods, especially punky woods, that just do not get along with the negative rake. But it's kind of a must with the resin to get a nice, good, smooth finish without the risk of chips. Because you get chips, and then you have to, you know, cut it down past those chips in the resin, and then so I figured, well, I'll sand it out of the cedar. I'd rather sand those little tear outs or whatever than try to sand it out of the resin. So I'm taking a little nib in the center off with this is a 5/8 bowl gouge, but it has like a crown grind to it. I did that so that way when I get into the bottom of bowls that are really deep, then I can get down into the bottom a lot easier versus with my sweatback grind. So I'm going over and just feeling. Platters are kind of tricky, or any other kind of, you know, flat plate style. When I make the cake stands and stuff, that getting that perfectly flat it takes some time. It took a lot longer than what I showed here, so it just takes time to get it good and flat, especially while this thing is wanting to wobble in and out on the lathe. So I went through all the grit sanding, and I put abrasive paste on it, and then the restoring polish, and then OB Shine Juice. Like I said, the second time I sanded it all down and put a new finish on it, I didn't use OB Shine Juice. I just used the restoring polish paste to give it a nice satin finish, and it looked a lot better because it was so uneven. The cedar just did not like to take anything I put on it. I even tried putting lacquer on it, and I had to sand that all off too. So, but it's okay. It ended up turning out really nice, even though it's not shiny. It has a beautiful satin finish anyway. I love how the light shines through it with the different colors. I was hoping for more color change in it, but I'm satisfied with it, considering my experience with doing pours and stuff. As you can see, it goes yellow to like a purplish pink. There's more yellow in it than I'd like, but it's all right. So that be it. Really appreciate everyone for watching, And I pray you guys are safe for the storm, and God bless.